Okay, so you're thinking about becoming a driving instructor. Are you mad? Well, let's have a chat and find out. So, first of all, why am I even asking the question? At the end of the day, I'm a driving instructor. I have been for well over a decade now, and to be perfectly honest, I love the job. It's certainly one of, if not the best jobs I've ever had. Gives me a real buzz. It sort of suits me, suits my lifestyle, suits my family, and it gives me a huge amount of job satisfaction. Being able to pass on my knowledge, my experience, my guidance to new drivers, and helping them not just to pass the driving test, but to become confident and competent and hopefully safe drivers once they've passed, and give them a sense of freedom and independence that most people are looking for that they haven't had previously. So why would I be suggesting that you might be mad to consider going down the same route? Well, I suppose I'm not really. But what I do want to do is make sure that you're thinking about things and have thought about things carefully before embarking on this particular path, because it's not an easy path to go down, nor is it a quick path either. So I just want to make sure that before you go any further, you've really given quite a lot of consideration to this. You're going in with your eyes wide open and your expectations have been set correctly. So let's go over 3 key things, just as an overview. That's all for now, because we're going to go into these things in a lot more detail in other videos and as part of our AAT instructor training that we do. But the 3 areas that I want to look at very briefly are the checks and balances that you need to consider before even thinking about buying any form of instructor training, be it from us or anybody else. Then I want to have a look at the training itself and what that entails, again just from an overview perspective. And then finally, just have a little snapshot look at what life is like as a driving instructor in terms of the reality, rather than perhaps what might be painted in marketing or sales literature that you might have read. So first of all, in order to be able to train to become a driving instructor, you need to make sure that once you've gone through that training and you've passed your relevant exams, that you will be able to get a license from the DVSA. So before you do anything, you need to have a look at what the qualifying criteria is in order to receive a license. Now, anybody can train to become a driving instructor. You don't need to meet these criteria in order to go through the training process, but I would argue there's not much point in going through the training process unless you know at the end of it you've actually got a career that you can take up, because you know you're going to get a license. So the DVSA, once you get to the relevant point in your training and you're passing your exams, will not, I repeat, will not give you a license unless you meet this criteria. Okay, so first of all, you need to be 21 years or older. You need to have had a full license for at least 3 years. You need to have less than 5 penalty points on your current license. You can't have been banned from driving within the last 4 years, and you need to pass what is called an enhanced criminal record check, or as it's now referred to, a disclosure and barring service check, which means there can't be anything in your background that the DVSA would consider inappropriate for somebody that is going to be responsible for teaching young adults and potentially vulnerable people, or their driving record is not of a sufficient quality for you to be a good advert, if you like, for teaching new drivers. So that's the first thing you need to consider, because if you know already that you don't meet that criteria, then there's not much point in going ahead and starting the training until such point as you know those things perhaps won't apply to you. But let's assume that you do meet the criteria, and that's the first hurdle that you've managed to overcome. You then need to look at the training process itself. Now, you'll see lots of statements out there on people's websites and in brochures, in blogs and things like that, that might suggest that you can train to become a driving instructor within a matter of weeks or a few short months. And I have to be perfectly honest with you and tell you that simply isn't the case. Theoretically, you can go through the actual training itself within a few weeks or months, but you can't sit and pass exams just as and when you want to. You have to wait for the DVSA to make exam dates available to you. Now, with Part 1, they do come through quite frequently because it's computer based. You go to somebody's office building, you sit there at a desk in front of a computer, and they get through loads and loads of people in a day. So Part 1 doesn't normally have that long a waiting time within your local area. But when it comes to Part 2 and Part 3, those are practical tests. They're going to take place in a car and they're going to be run by an examiner. Now, it might surprise you, there aren't that many examiners in the country that are qualified to assess potential driving instructors on their Part 2 and their Part 3 tests. And there's less than 100 nationwide, and you think of the thousands and thousands of people like you that are thinking about or already started going through this process. Often within your local area you're going to find Part 2 and Part 3 tests are like hen's teeth, and you could simply be waiting for months and months just for a test date to come along. And then of course you may not pass those tests on your first attempt, so that means you're then going to need to take a resit, and that could be another number of months waiting around. So to be perfectly honest, for the majority of people, typically getting through your ADI training and taking and passing your exams takes anywhere between 6 to 18 months. That suits a lot of people because it's something that they do alongside their current job, and they do it like in their spare time, in weekends, evenings, holidays, etc. But if you're wanting to become a driving instructor in a hurry because you're in a position where you need to earn money, then I wouldn't necessarily dissuade you from going down the training route. But what I would say is you're probably better off looking for another job as well in the meantime. Something that's just going to tide you over, that's going to keep the money rolling in. Unless of course you've got money saved up, perhaps just through your savings or through redundancy payout or something like that. It is going to take a number of months. As I say, most people typically at least 6 months, and for the majority it's a lot longer than that. So just make sure that you sort of factor that in and budgeted it in as well to your sort of monthly income requirements, so that you can meet your mortgage, your rent, pay your bills, put food on your table, look after your family, etc. The training itself is sort of fairly straightforward, and to be perfectly honest, you probably know an awful lot of it anyway, as I cover off in another video. In my opinion, the vast majority of people probably already know about 80% of what they are going to need to know in order to pass their ADI exams. But it's that last 20% that is really going to take an awful lot of study and practice, revision, more practice, more study, more practice, more study. And then thirdly, let's have a look at the job itself. Okay, but I'm going to have a talk to you about that after my next lesson. Okay, so let's have a quick snapshot overview of the job itself then, because there certainly are a huge amount of upsides and benefits to being a driving instructor. But again, it is a case of looking at the picture in the round rather than just focusing on what those highlights may be. Often online or in adverts elsewhere, you'll see quoted that driving instructors typically earn 30, 35, 40,000 pounds a year. And whilst that is true in many cases, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy to earn that level of income. And also you need to appreciate the difference between income and salary. So if you haven't been in self-employed before and you're used to sort of receiving a monthly or weekly payout from your employer, which is classified as PAYE, then of course all of the tax and national insurance is deducted from that before you get it from your employer. But when you're self-employed, it's not the same thing. So Not only will you be responsible for calculating and paying whatever national insurance and tax you need to the government, also your earnings are not the same as a PAY salary. So out of your overall income that you get from teaching learner drivers, then you need to deduct your operating costs. So that's cost of your car, your fuel, your insurance, and any other business related expenses. That then comes off your headline income figure, if you like, and then you calculate the tax and national insurance that you're going to need to pay the government on the balance, and then whatever's left, that's yours. Okay, that is then, I suppose, the equivalent of your salary. So do make sure that, again, you're going in with your eyes wide open and you have a realistic expectation of what your salary equivalent is going to be, and also bear in mind that as a self-employed person, it's not going to be a steady and stable income, because it will fluctuate from week to week and month to month. There'll be some months where your diary is absolutely ram-packed. Every single student turns up for their lesson as they should do. Everybody's paid you on time, and your bank account is starting to swell. However, you're going to get those leaner months, either because of the time of the year or adverse weather is preventing you from getting out and teaching. Or you just have a particularly poor month in terms of students cancelling on you, or they all decide to go away on holiday over a 2, 3, 4 week period for a couple of weeks, and suddenly you're sitting there having days off or half days off where you'd really like to be out working, but you can't because you don't have the students to teach for whatever reason. And of course that's then going to impact on the amount of money that you're collecting for that week or month, and that's going to deplete your bank balance. So we'll look at the figures in more detail in other videos, but it is a real factor that you need to consider when you're planning any form of self-employment, including being a driving instructor. Also, when it comes to lesson cancellations, again, it's a fact of life that students cancel lessons, and sometimes that's at very short notice, so you don't get the opportunity to rebook another student into that slot. That said, if you do have a full or a pretty full diary of students, and you're a decent teacher and people enjoy turning up for their lessons, then cancellations shouldn't have too much of a detrimental impact on your overall income over the course of a 12-month period. So don't let that put you off. But again, it's a reality. So go in with that expectation that sometimes students are going to cancel lessons, and don't let it annoy you or frustrate you and get to you. So again, having the right sort of mindset and attitude ahead of actually starting to teach students will be particularly helpful for you. But that said, let's have a talk about the upsides. So you are going to teach an awful lot of people that you love being in a car with. You get on, you have a little bit of a laugh. Obviously you've got the serious business of teaching them how to drive, but you're also having a bit of a laugh and a joke. You get to know a little bit about their backgrounds, about their lives, what they're interested in. They'll share some funny stories with you, you can share some with them, and it can just be a great way to spend time. And of course you're getting paid for it, so it's really one of those jobs that if you're doing it right and you've got a great bunch of students, then it really doesn't feel like work. So the upsides are fantastic, and as a self-employed person you do have a degree of flexibility over when you work. So if you're the sort of person that likes just working Monday to Friday and you want every weekend off, then that certainly is possible, but you do need to bear in mind that a lot of your students perhaps will only be able to have lessons at the weekend. So it might take you longer to fill your diary with students that are perfectly happy to have lessons between a Monday and a Friday. You may be the sort of person that likes to take a month or two off every year. And again, that's perfectly possible to do as a driving instructor, but then you don't have total flexibility over when you do that, because you will have students all the way through the year that are coming up towards test dates. And if you're not there when their test date is coming up, then you need to disclose that to them fairly early on, or ask them to plan around your availability. So all these things are possible. You can just work mornings, or you could just work evenings. You can do the job part-time, full-time, flexi-time, but it takes planning. It takes organisation, it takes a lot of communication between you and your students, and it will take time to make it work. But over time, I'm sure you will find a pattern of work that suits all of your parameters. So you're finding that happy balance between the amount of hours that you're working against the income that you're receiving, and what you want to plan into your diary in terms of your family time, your social time, etc. And of course, because you're self-employed, you have nobody else to answer to really other than yourself. So you haven't got somebody on your back asking you to do things that perhaps you don't necessarily want to do. You haven't got people checking up on you all the way through the day. You don't ask or need to ask permission to take holidays. You don't need to spend hours in meetings that just bore the pants off of you and you just feel are completely pointless, and you're not going to be working with colleagues who might rub you up the wrong way. So for me, having worked in all sorts of different industries over the years, being self-employed is just absolutely brilliant, for all of the reasons I've just highlighted. But again, as a driving instructor, once you've passed your Part 3 exam and you've got your approved driving instructor license, your full license, you are effectively, whether it's under your own brand or another driving school's brand, you are setting up a brand new business. Even if you're working with a very established driving school, because you're self-employed, you're still setting up your particular division, if you like, of that business. You're building your customer base, you're building your reputation, you're building your profile. You're getting your students to spread the message about you, not about the driving school. So, like with any other business, you don't go from startup to the peak of your success within a matter of days, weeks or months. So again, have that expectation in mind. Make sure that you have given this whole process due consideration. Weigh up the pros and the cons. Be honest with yourself. If you want to, speak to other driving instructors in your local area. Most of them are pretty approachable people, and they'll be more than happy to, when time allows, have a bit of a chat with you, maybe take them out for a coffee or something like that. And just ask them for their experiences and their words of advice and guidance. So there's an awful lot of information out there, including on our YouTube channel and on our website. So if I haven't put you off yet, then do have a look at the other content that we have to offer. So hope this short video has been useful for you in terms of giving you a heads up what's involved in the checks and balances that you need to go through, the training process, and then life afterwards as a driving instructor. But as I said, you'll find lots of other content around these subjects in other videos. So let us know if you have any comments. We do read everything that comes through, and we will get back to you, I promise, even if it's not sort of immediately. Give us a little bit of time, but hope to hear from you soon. Cheers. Take care. Bye.